All committee members are present. If we could get a motion for approval of our previous meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have one piece before us offered in as a substitute amendment. It is an ordinance amending and or supplementing Title V Public Works, Chapter 50 Sewers, Section 50.22 Sewer Service Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron to establish summer sprinkling program rates for residential customers in the city and declaring an emergency. This piece is offered by Councilman Hoke. Mr. Hoke, if you'd like to speak to this, I do know the city has some graphs that they would like to share with us as well. So, Mr. Hardy.
Yeah, I'd like to see the what the administration has to say.
All right. So I'm going to pass out some information in response to some of the data requests that were made by members of council.
Okay, kids. I have one. Or I have one. All right, so we were asked to map the information to get a better geographic sense of who benefits from what as it relates to, yes. Over here so we can see you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hate to lose that joy.
Jeez. We were asked to map who benefits from what program we have relating to sewer bills, water bills, utility bills, et cetera. So the first one that we mapped was the hose bib program. So the hose bib, if I understand correctly, is a separate meter that individuals or water customers can get for things like filling swimming pools or doing lawns, et cetera, and it's metered separately for the purpose of recognizing the sewer differential there. So we mapped those out, and you can see that on the map. We also have it by ward, and so in the case of hose bibs, 58% of hose bib accounts are in 1, 6, and 8. Those were the top 3 wards that take advantage of that program. The next one, thank you, Shelley, is Akron Cares. A hose bib is a separate meter that you can purchase. There's a one-time fee, and forgive me, I don't know what that is, but I think it's a couple $100s. It's a one-time fee to get a separate metered water spigot for things like doing your lawn, filling swimming pools, etc. They can do that now, and so that's mapping out the accounts that we have now who have taken advantage of the hose bib program. We have total, I have that downstairs, but it's of the hose bibs, 58, the top 3 wards were 1, 6, and 8, and I can't read, it's so small, but up there I can total them quickly, but let's say it looks like about 300 accounts. Don't quote me on that, but about 300 accounts.
I had one question. You said
Yes, sir.
we charge for those meters? I didn't think we charged for those meters.
We do not?
We do not charge.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
No, thanks for clarifying. All right. Next up is the Akron Cares accounts. So we mapped any water customer account that's ever taken advantage of the Akron Cares program. You see that there. The top 3 wards for this program were 3, 4, and 5. Akron Cares. So Akron Cares is a program much like other utility bill relief programs that are run throughout the city. We run this. It's funded almost 100% by employee donations. City Council has made donations to this program in recent years as well. We've talked about it as around this horseshoe. The day that we release it, it's gone within a few hours, if that. But it's the program that we put in place years ago when we initially entered into the CSO project to give relief to Akron residents who are struggling with their water and sewer bills. I can tally them. I will tally them up, but just looking at it from here, ballpark, about 1,100 accounts that have taken advantage of it. I mean, I would rather somebody calculate it than me doing my napkin. And then the last map that we did is on irrigation services. So these are sprinkler systems, permanent underground sprinkler systems at water customers, which again, I believe are metered separately. Shelley?
I'm sorry?
Yes, they're metered separately. How does that happen? You would work through the water department, is my understanding,
So if you have an irrigation system, you have initiated, given a separate meter.
you can do that, yes. I'm not saying everyone has done it, but they can reach out to the water department and get that.
So if you have initiated, how does it?
If it's on the water customer or the property owner to initiate it with the water department.
So that's the only way it gets done?
Correct.
It's initiated by the,
That's my understanding.
and basically it does what?
So, much like the hose bib, and Shelley correct me, it's a separate meter. So I don't believe that, is that water then charged to sewer as well, or is that metered separately? They're just being charged for water, not sewer on those separate, the hose bib and the irrigation services. And ironically, 58% of those taking advantage of that are in wards 1 and 8. So that's the,
Which would make sense.
yes,
I mean,
it's where most people have
The
the
system.
ability to do systems, yep,
and to have the knowledge to,
to go and
To
get
know.
that. Yes. So that is the information that I have.
Did you say that all the irrigation systems are getting a water allowance?
No, they pay for the water usage, but not the sewer charge. So they pay for all the water that they use.
So they do have a second meter
There's a second meter, yes.
on all of the irrigation services?
Yes. Mhm.
Well, then what's the difference between all the homes with the bib services?
You're gonna have to come up, yeah.
Yeah, but
Shelley Goodrich, Deputy Director of Finance.
The hose bib just simply is if, the hose bib is if you want to have a hose. Some people just have a hose instead of wiring their entire yard for irrigation. So if they want to be able to water their yard, but they don't want to have to pay an outside service to come in and put the lines in and put an irrigation system in, they would just have a meter, a hose bib meter, that they could connect a hose and run it from the back of their house or the front of their house and water their lawn, which is different than an irrigation system, which we see a lot of commercial companies have, where they have sprinklers that pop up, you know, and water the lawn automatically.
Okay. And what was the number again on between the irrigation and the?
Give me a moment, I'll give you the exact.
So, Mr. Hardy, just a point of clarification, on the Akron Cares, there's 1,166 residents who have benefited from Akron Cares. Is that just this year alone? Because I know...
That was 2015 through 2019, and it says that on the key, but it's very small. But since that was when the program started in March of 2015, and that's through the present.
Okay.
Council office has this electronically as well, if you need to pull it up later.
Okay. And then on the Utility Bill Relief Act, I have 1783. Is that from the same time frame?
That's correct, same time frame.
We didn't initiate that program, though, until about 2016, so, but the same roughly. And I didn't map that, but the Utility Bill Relief Act was the policy that we put in place a few years back to help with leaky toilets, burst water pipes, or underground leaks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
What was the second number you gave?
The second number is the Utility Bill Relief Act. That's the one for like leaky toilets. That one is 1783.
1783. Was that the second page?
Yeah.
I don't know that we mapped that.
I just
It's in there.
calculated 1 through 10.
Yep.
I didn't mess
Yep.
with the other numbers.
I can't see. So, Madam Chair, are you taking questions, or are you going to do with your committee?
again.
You're taking questions, you're going to do your committee?
Yes, yes.
first?
Any questions from committee members first? Mr. Kilby?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Hardy, I think we need some context here. Like, I always heard we had 85,000 customers total. Does that sound about right?
We have about, I don't know the exact, but it's usually between, it's about 90,000 households in the city. I don't know about water customers, though, in terms of billing, because that's households, not commercial.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, now, I'm still not clear on the difference between the irrigation services and hose meter or hose bib service. Now, the hose bib service, is that a meter that goes in the hose? Is that what that is?
Correct. It's a separate meter that, that you can get. The city provides it free of charge, so that you can get, and then you're just metered for water that you use, and you can connect a hose. Normally, the meter is ran to an outside spigot, and then you connect a hose, and you can water your flowers, your lawn, and
Fill your pool.
use the water accordingly.
So why would anybody get a meter installed if they can get a hose bid? I don't understand.
It's a meter.
It is a meter,
It
but it
is a
doesn't
meter.
have to be installed, right? It's just you put in your hose, right?
No, it's
No.
installed.
Okay, is that
But
free?
normally,
Yes,
So anybody can get one, huh?
yes.
correct.
What if everybody, all 90,000 customers said I wanted one? Could we supply them one?
We could.
We could.
We could. We'd have to buy some more probably, though,
We
right?
probably would, but
Okay, so the other one, the,
But again, it's for outdoor uses.
Okay.
I would shudder to think that you can't run a hose back into the house.
But the irrigation service, how do we, do they have a meter?
they do as well.
But it's not a hose meter,
Bit.
it's just a regular meter?
Correct, and that would, I mean, we see it mostly in commercial businesses where they have an automatic,
Oh, okay.
you know, sprinkling system to keep their lawn looking beautiful, and they have gotten that irrigation system put in professionally, and then it's ran to a separate meter, an irrigation meter.
So most of those are commercial accounts then, right?
They're residential and commercial.
Residential and
Okay, but
commercial.
How many are commercial, how many are residential? Do you know?
We could get that information.
Anyways, what do you think? Most of them are commercial or most of them are residential? I mean, got any idea? Like,
I honestly can't say.
and, okay, so what about the, this here, Akron Cares? I think Madam Chairman said something, she said something, 156 customers that benefited from this. Does that sound about right? Over how long of a period of time was that?
2015 to 2019.
Okay, so 4 years. What do you have to, does anybody that apply for that get it, or you have to have your water being shut off or something? How does that work?
There's certain qualifications. There is information on our website about the Akron Cares program. They have to be Akron City residents, and there are certain qualifications. I reviewed it earlier this week, but I can't think off the top of my head.
It is means tested from the standpoint of you have to meet income requirements.
How much can they get? What's the,
I think it's up to $300, but there are certain qualifications.
is that like a one-time thing, or? Okay.
Once per year.
One per year, okay. So, you know, a lot of these are things that are, some people don't know about them. People that know about them seem like they benefit from them. So I didn't even know what CARES is. I heard of it, but I don't think your average person knows what that means. Do we put that information in a water bill sometimes? I mean, sometimes I don't even read that stuff.
Yes, we do promote Akron Cares at least. I don't know, I can't speak to the hose bib or the irrigation, but the Akron Cares program, we do put an insert in the water bill.
And probably human services, social workers or whatever know about it to help.
Yes, 211, all of those types of things.
Agencies, this makes sense. Okay, like I noticed the irrigation services, there's quite a few of them in Hudson. Do we have any idea how many are in Hudson?
We do. Say that again? What do you?
How many irrigation services do we have in the city of Hudson?
That is mapped.
I know there's a lot of dots there. But, oh, it's on this? Okay. Oh, all right, thanks.
It's that one up there.
So, okay. Okay, I got that, sorry.
It's a lot of information at one time for us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
18 in Hudson, and I'm not sure on this one.
Okay, so let me cut to the chase here. Is the administration of the opinion that we don't need to do what Councilman Hoke is proposing because we're already handling this problem? Is that what you're leading up to, Mr. James?
I think the administration's position is two things. One is no one is going to argue that we are in the midst of an unaffordable CSO project. We are paying for over 100 years of industrial policy that allowed people to put pollutants into our water streams, and the federal government has mandated that we fix it all at once. No one likes that. We have endeavored over the last 4 years to put in place policies and programs to help assist folks in creative ways that do two things. One, provide for equity across the community as much as possible, and two, to also make sure that we make the argument to the federal government that this is an unaffordable program. We have been in the midst and still are in the midst of arguing that this program overall puts too much on the backs of ratepayers, and the federal government, if they're going to mandate this, needs to step up. We've had that conversation, not just about this proposal, but about proposals that Councilman Neal has brought forth and others, that while we're in the midst of that fight, it's not in our best interest to start giving discounts regardless.
Why? Because it might look like we don't need some kind of assistance from them?
It's hard to say that it's unaffordable when we give rates to certain folks and not others. The other piece is, and this is obviously up to every single individual council member to decide how they feel about it, but from the mayor's perspective, one has to ask us the question, does it make sense to provide a discount to those who can most afford it versus other efforts that we have tried or not been able to enact for those that can't, who can least afford it? And I think the mayor's position is that this is while well-intended, not an equitable policy as it relates to giving relief to those, and I think these maps show, who can most afford, if they want to fill their pools or water their plants or do things through other means than a across-the-board rate cut. We still are trying to do through the Utility Relief Act that we work together on, conversations that have been ongoing about the equitability of the overall rate structure. Those are all legitimate disagreements. But I think we're all in agreement that we would love for the sewer and water rates to come down, but we are stuck with the bill. And so the question is, how do we enact the most equitable policies that we can while recognizing, as I said, the affordability issue and the fact that we are not done yet fighting over this consent decree and what it means to our ratepayers. And so I think the administration's position, the mayor's position is that if we were to do anything, we need to on those that can least afford it versus rate cuts who, in our opinion, can afford to pay, myself included. I love watering my plants. I sprinkle all the way up until the first frost. I'm going to pay because I can.
Got a nice salary. But, okay, now the CARES program, you said most of that money comes from generous customers that decide to pay a little extra because they can. And
Mr. Kilby, speak into the microphone.
okay, so the CARES program, that he says 100% mostly generated from customers that just contribute to it for other less fortunate customers.
It's mainly funded through employees, City of Akron employees donating money back. However, City Council has in the recent years devoted part of their budget towards the program.
Okay, all right, sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Freeman?
I think I know the answer. Hose bib versus irrigation, same meter, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
I think maybe there might be some misunderstanding.
It's a meter that's
It's a meter.
connected to either an outside spigot that you can connect a hose to it and water the lawn, or else you've got an irrigation system that was installed in the yard, lines are ran, and it's tapped into that meter. So yes,
Okay,
same
thanks.
meter.
So is the hose thing a temporary thing as opposed to installing a regular meter that's all the time, all the way around?
The meter is there all winter long. It's permanent. We go through, and actually once we see that usage drop off on the hose bib in September, we go through and do a shut-off process, and we stop billing. So it is a meter that's there. You know, most people probably go out and disconnect their hose and put it in the garage for the for the winter, but it is there all year long, and then they can connect to it in the next summer and start, using it outdoors as necessary.
How do we read the hose program? I mean, is it a readout just like the regular?
It's the same meter. Mm-hmm. So automated meter reading.
Right. Quick question. I know when we talk about Akron residents versus the Akron CARES number, it may not seem like a lot. So for me, I want to focus on the map for Ward 5 really quick here, sorry. It's just, I seem to be leading here on the Akron CARES chart. If you could give us a breakdown, I know it's probably going to take you a couple of days to get it. I think it's like $50,000 a year we put into Akron CARES, and that's outside of what the city employees donate into the program. How much, I know there's like 4 years that we're calculating here, right? How much have we, the city and employees, put into this program? Because I know it goes pretty quick. I tell my residents about it every year, and it's usually gone within 24, 48 hours. So I would like to know, and I'm sure the other council members would like to know for their wards, how much has been spent over these years going into these programs, because I know we put more than just 50 grand in, and even if we can break it down by ward, even with the Utility Relief Act, because I know I've had some issues with some leaky toilets as well, and things of that so forth. So I think it gives us an idea what we're looking at when we talk about apples and oranges.
Absolutely, we can definitely quantify that. We have all of the data, so we can get the total amount that has been for both those programs.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hope?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, one of the things that originally came forward was about the cost of the meter, and basically it was said that there is no cost to the resident. Well, there is, because who's paying for that meter? The taxpayers are paying for the meter. So there is a cost, and it does cost the taxpayers money to supply those meters, as to whether somebody takes a meter or doesn't take a meter, or whether somebody can afford to or not afford to. There's also the monthly billing charge that's on there. And so, you know, that's another added cost onto it. Looking at this program that I've brought in, this program, and I don't know, would you agree that that bottom line, this program does exactly the same as what the second meter does?
I would not.
It doesn't do the same thing for the residents as the second meter does?
For those that take advantage of it, maybe,
No,
but not no, I don't think it does the same thing.
For any resident, it wouldn't show the same exact function. No. So it doesn't matter whether you can afford it or not afford it. If you can't afford it, then you don't realize anything out of it. But if you can't afford to put a meter in and go through that cost, then I've asked for a application and a $10 fee, and that's basically the cost of the program right now. So, I mean,
So the meter doesn't cost the homeowner anything right now. I understand your argument about it costs the taxpayers writ large. It costs the taxpayers to get rakes for parks maintenance, but that's part of the public good. I would argue that by doing the hose bib and the irrigation systems, for those that want to and can demonstrate a need, i.e. they want to fill their swimming pool, there's a program for that where you aren't charged for the sewer. You can be charged for the water that you use, which is a precious resource. The reason I don't think they're one and the same is that when you start blanket discounts across the board, somebody has to pay for that. And I think that the big difference, in my opinion, is that the policy is inequitable because those that are going to need to use it are those who in most cases can afford to pay for that. I think that that's where I don't see the two being the same. If people want to get a discount in the summertime for their lawn or for their pool, there's a way to do that we have instituted that does not impact those that are paying, that cannot pay. We have a program for that. And for those that are just middle-of-the-road customers, we've figured out a way to do that. But when you start putting blanket discounts across the board, and in my opinion, based on this data, for those that can most afford it, I think you have an equity issue. And I think that should be something that we look at.
There's an equity issue in this?
Yes.
The bottom line is that both programs get to the same point. Both programs get to the point where the customer, the resident, the city of Akron is only paying for the water and not for the sewer charge. And that's it. I mean, and it's all based upon, winter consumption, which is, when you're not using all the extra water. So then in the summertime, when you're using your extra water for washing your cars or watering your grass or watering your flowers or anything else, then the water that you use over and above that winter usage is not charged to sewer rate. And not getting charged to sewer rate for the water to be used outside is basically the same thing as what the second meter is doing, other than the fact you don't have to go through, get a meter, get a plumber, get your water pipes changed, and go through the whole process there. Because what that does is, you're talking about equity. What you're doing is you're shutting people out.
No.
Yes, you are.
No.
Yes, you are.
No. And you're missing two big points. One is that you don't have to hire a plumber. We come out and install it. The second thing is that
who installs it?
We do not install it. We provide the meter.
But then you install it. But here's the thing.
Sure.
Another big difference is under your proposal, a family of 5 using water in the wintertime, or in the summertime rather, gets a discount on water that they're using because it's a blanket discount versus a hose bib program or an irrigation system program that specifically meters the water that in your mind is not going into the sewer, although we can go back and forth on whether or not that water ultimately makes it to the sewer or not. But just for the sake of argument, let's say it doesn't go to the sewer. These two programs do that. When you give a blanket provision for discounts in the summertime on the household bill, what's to say that a household that uses more water than I do is going to get a deeper discount because it's across the board versus the water, and that water does go into the sewer. So through these programs, we really are metering the water in your mind that is not going in the sewer versus a blanket discount for the household that during the summer months, there's all kinds of other things that are going on with the water that people would get more because of their usage than other people who don't use as much for all kinds of reasons, smaller families, not as many bathrooms, all those types of things.
It's not all going to be the same amount. Everybody uses a different amount of water. You're talking about somebody getting a larger discount than I am.
But would you agree if I have 3 bathrooms and you have 1 bathroom, and that's just because that's the house that we're in, do you agree that I'm going to get more benefit than you because I simply have more bathrooms that people are using?
Not necessarily, because you're still going to have those 30 bathrooms in the wintertime that you're using as your 30 bathrooms.
So what about a family of 5 versus a family of a single person?
The bathroom charges are going to equal out. They're going to be the same.
So a family of 5 is going to have the same water usage as a single person in a home in the summertime?
No, but it's all based upon your individual consumption. It's not based upon...
So who does that discount benefit more?
Everybody benefits from the summer rate.
I would disagree.
Everybody.
I respectfully disagree.
Well, anybody that signs up for it, and takes advantage of it. Same thing as what, you're talking about the BIB program or the second meter program. If you can afford it and you can have somebody come in and do your, how many people in here now can shut your water off in your home, cut your pipe, and install another meter? How many people in here right now can do that?
How many people can hire a plumber and do it?
Yeah, not very many.
But let me ask you this.
But, no.
So what's the difference between, since you asked me the question, so why not, what does your program do that the hose bib and the irrigation services doesn't?
It allows everybody to be equitable and have a part of the program rather than having to get the meter, have it installed, change your piping, and then go through another monthly billing process in order to do it as well. So,
but in all respect, your proposal today only affects owner-occupants. And so a large majority of our population are tenants, and they will not be able to benefit from your program. So that's not equitable to the citizens of the city of Akron. So, I mean, that is, quite a big portion of our population that won't be able to avail themselves to this program.
Yeah.
Whereas we put in other programs that they can't avail themselves to.
well, I mean, your property taxes are based upon owner. So, is it unfair that,
But those are normally billed into rent. So, the rental rates.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Okay, so you want to make it for all the renters, everybody else in the whole city? Do you want to make it
No, we want people to use the hose bib and the irrigation system program if they want to fill their pool or get a special spigot.
Because you don't want people taking advantage of this program. We have 60 cities.
Did I say that? Well, first of all, you're putting words in my mouth. I never said that. That's not on the record. I never said that. So no, I did not say that.
No, but that's what you're insinuating.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. We have 60 cities in the Northeast Ohio Sewer District that participate in this program. They have this program in there. They've had it since 1993. They're under EPA mandates. They're doing the same mandates and cleaning their water in the same process as Akron is. And they even ask for rates to be increased in 2016. But they never came back and asked all the people in those 60 cities to do away with the summer rate program.
Yeah, somebody else is paying for it now.
You know who's paying for everything? The citizens of Akron.
Yeah,
That's who's paying for everything.
we agree on that,
Yeah, and that's what this is for. This is for the citizens of Akron.
some of them.
The owner occupant.
It's for the citizens of Akron
Who own the home
who own the
and
home.
afford to get it.
So if I can interject here for a minute, guys. Councilman Neal has a question.
I have my
And
hand.
then Councilwoman Amobi, and then Councilman Neal.
Just trying to understand all of this personally. The city would have to purchase these meters? Are they $200 a piece, or do we get a discounted rate if you purchase so many?
I don't know the per unit cost, but we purchase meters all the time.
These meters?
They're the same meters that are on your house. There's no difference. They're the same.
Would you just get additional one if
Correct.
you wanted to? Oh, I see, okay. But you have to request it.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Do we have any idea of the people that have gone from a single meter that we all have to one of these specialized ones? Do we have any kind of indication the rate difference that they paid before this happened and what they are currently paying? Just give us an indication of what kind of money we're talking about.
So I think, and just want to make sure I understand correctly, so the rate is the same, the water rate's the same, but the question is usage. Did usage go up?
Yeah, how much are they?
We can get that information.
Yeah, and the difference in what they're paying, some actual homes.
But the water rate would be the same. They just aren't paying the sewer. But I get you on the usage.
Yeah, and that's what I want, the
Yeah.
savings
We
toward
can
the.
do an analysis.
Yes. The other question, do we know, are we saying that with the CARES program, that each individual who applies for this or requests this or however they get to take advantage of this is getting the maximum of $300? Or is a range of what they're getting?
I'm sure we can get that information. I don't have it now.
Yeah,
And
there's
how many-
information on our website, but we can definitely get more information. My understanding is there is an analysis that goes into it as far as how far behind they are on their water bill.
Right.
The maximum you can receive is $300 in assistance, but it probably depends on, what their bill is at the current moment. But we can definitely get you more information on that.
And per year?
Absolutely.
As opposed to the lump? And how many residents are benefiting and that kind of thing? I realize it's a charity kind of program, so it helps so many residents a year. I don't know if I fully understand, but I guess I somewhat do. If you are rich enough and sophisticated enough to know that the water that you use for your swimming pool or to irrigate your flowers and the lawn, shouldn't go into the sewer, then you request this separate bill and then the separate meter, and then you get a separate breakout. And I guess it is what it is. I don't know. I would imagine folks in wards, these other wards that benefit from the charity program, wash their cars, but I
Yes.
don't know how much that would save them. And I don't know if anybody that's on these other two programs would be kind of low-income, average-income folks, to give us some indication of how they would benefit from something like this.
And I would agree that the service department, I'm sure, would be more than happy to work with council members and others to try and promote the two programs that we have now to folks that would not know how to request it or that you even could request it.
And essentially, your program is that you offer it to all of the citizens of Akron and give them the break if they pay the $10 in the application, so everybody would benefit.
Everybody. It wouldn't matter about whether you can afford it, can't afford it, what your income is. It goes by your
Yeah.
water bill.
The only thing,
Homeowners.
And who's
It's
paying?
not, all the citizens of Akron.
yeah, the
People
only
who
thing I
own
want to say,
property.
the only thing we do know is that whatever increases landlords get, it goes down to the tenants. We know that. I don't know if any benefit that they get if it goes down to the tenants. But I do know that they tend to share in the increased costs of water and those kinds of things. So, anyway, those are my questions, so if we can get answers to those, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. Just a few things I want to be able to share. One, Honorable Ms. Samobian, I do want to share, I had an opportunity to meet with the Akron Canton Real Estate Investment Association, and I encourage us to bring them in, a professional association that has a national lobbying group. They lobby the state of Ohio for best practice, and they support, if you look at landlords, we're rolling out the red carpet for Amazon that's bringing 1,500 jobs. But we have, if we look at them as an association that represents landlords that house half of our population within this city. And if you look at what that correlates to paying water bills, buying paint, carpet, refrigerators, stoves, and all that type of thing. Now, I'm a small landlord. I am not able to pass on that rate increase to my tenants. Most landlords are holding constant with that. You can't pass on that $70 or $80 bump that came with the water bill. And so I encourage, because sometimes we use them as the boogeyman, but I encourage us to talk to them from a professional standpoint and see, because as I stated, when the Fair Housing Contact Service had their meeting and they talked about, you know, the eviction rate in Akron being per capita #1 within the state of Ohio, one of the questions asked was how much of that is connected to people not being able to pay their water bills. And we need to take a honest look at that. And I'm hoping that Mr. Fricker and his team will be able to bring us some information on some legislation that council passed some time ago so that we can look at that. With that being said, I appreciate the conversation around the horseshoe. I do want to say, when we talk about equity, and this is why it's important for us to come to a common understanding, what is inequitable is charging everybody the same thing for the sewer rate. That's inequitable because it's based on median income. Some people, if you looked at the information that was brought to us by United Way, some people don't even, I mean, their savings is, the median savings within the group that population that served, that United Way had served, was 0. That was the median savings. So that means a lot of people are operating in the red constantly. And those people are the folks that fall within our rental units. Now, I say that to say, understanding that when we talk about equity, the challenge for us, administration and council as a whole, is trying to find a way how to get this off of just median income on dealing with the sewer rate. In this case, in dealing with the proposal brought in by Councilman Hoke and what we're presently doing with the city, I think the challenge is this, and this is why I support what Councilman Hoke brought in. Because if you see, my ward has a lot of people that apply for Akron Cares. It's because what Councilman Hoke brought in, we're not asking anybody to get anything for free. They're paying for their water. What we're doing, though, is we're not having them pay for something that technically they wouldn't be using, which is the sewer. Now, there was some information that I asked from the service department, and that is, how much does it cost us to process when we have a heavy rain or when we have snowfall? How does that tax our sewer system? So that we can see what is the surge in cost to us. Because like Councilwoman Mobian asked, I'd like to know, what are we losing as far as the sewer rates that we cannot charge because people have the bid? You know, based on their water usage, what would have been the sewer amount that we would have charged to that? I think there's a couple things. When I look at what's equitable, I think I understand the administration's point, not wanting anybody, and somebody can always abuse something, and we have to find a way how to, no matter what we use, make it to where people don't abuse it. What Mr. Hoke's thing is, I had a tenant in the summertime, they'd love to fill up one of those little plastic pools. I used to cringe when they filled it up because I knew you know, they didn't pay, and that tenant didn't pay their water. It was just part of their thing. I paid that.
You could get a hose bib.
Yeah, if I paid the $200 and then.
You don't have to pay anything.
I mean, to have my plumber.
Yeah.
You know. So in some cases, I see how it could benefit anybody. But again, I do understand the city's challenge of, you know, the sewer rate. I think for us, the challenge is being able to actually understand the cost. That's why I go back to one, understanding what did we lose on being able to charge for the sewer for those who are using the bib rate, and then having an understanding of what the charge is for when it rains and when it snows, and it goes into our sewer system. But I do think, and I want to be careful when I use this term, but when we talk about an equitable thing, is when we're talking about just making people pay for what they use, because you're not asking people, as was mentioned, a tenant would have to get their landlord to put on the bib if the tenant is the one that's paying the bill. I think this way it would be easier if we went by regular usage. I'm not for giving anybody something free, but I'm also not for charging people for something that they're not using. Now, these are my last questions, Madam Chair. Again, I would like to know the cost of what would have been the sewer rate for the water usage associated with the bid program. I would like to know the cost of when we have a heavy rain or a snowfall, and especially with the snowfall, because one, I think we need to look at charging, and this is a challenge if you remember when Mr. Skerritt came here and he spoke to us about what's happening in the State House about the water. They're trying to control the water rates that we can charge to suburban communities. We need to keep an eye on that, because
Yes.
I think we need to look at how we charge them, and I also think we need to look at the gas tax money that came in. We cannot, it's hard to figure this out, but we have a lot of residents that drive into Akron and then drive out because they come here to work and then they leave. And the reason why I'm saying we need to look at the gas tax money and see how it could come in, not for this program, but overall water usage. When those people are here, they're flushing toilets, they're using water, they're driving down our roads in the wintertime, creating the ice and the snow that goes into our sewer system. That gas tax money, I think we need to look at seeing, again, as far as what the cost is to treat that snow, that ice, that those extra drivers are coming in and forcing into our system. We need to use some type of algorithm to figure out how we can, and I notice the administration may already have that money earmarked for something else, but since we have already charged our residents 0.25% on their income tax to come in, that gas tax money is like, it's not free money, but it's money that at the time of the 0.25% tax increase that we brought in, we did not know was coming for sure. Now that it's here, let's look at what costs are actually related to it. We know infrastructure costs, but I believe there is a cost for our water treatment as well, because as those folks drive through and they bring their debris and the dirt and whatnot, especially in the wintertime when they push that into our sewer system, we could look at that to underwrite our sewer treatment costs, which we can take dollars off of our residents. I know it'll take away from what we've probably have budgeted for the gas tax, but if there's a true related cost associated with it that's impacted our overall residents, maybe we can look at taking a portion of that money and shifting the cost to take some of that cost off our residents.
So, just real quick, just on the gas tax, by law, we can only use it for roadway improvement. So it has to be transportation-related infrastructure, unfortunately. But that's not saying we can't be creative with it, but we have to be creative within that box. Interestingly, and you'll see this in the data, the Utility Billing Relief Act is used all over the city in fairly equal amounts. I think in part because we promoted it so well. We had long conversations around the horseshoe. It was talked about several times in the paper, and we've come to ward meetings. We've provided council with updates, so it's constantly talked about. But I have to be honest, I am flabbergasted that you could look at the data look at this proposal and not come to a conclusion that this is inequitable. This is for homeowners only. We talk about washing cars. You know how many people in the city don't own a car? I mean, why is that going to benefit? Who stands to benefit the most from this policy? The folks that have swimming pools and large lawns? Folks that have cars to wash? I'm not denying them that they might want relief, but I just pose that any definition of equity, for me, I come to the same conclusion, which is if we can't say yes to Councilman Neal's HEAP extension, which I still believe, for a lot of reasons I've talked about today, we cannot, how can we say yes to this, where the folks that stand to benefit the most are folks who own property, own cars, own things like swimming pools, and will proactively apply to get the exemption. It's not a blanket exemption. You have to apply to get it. So I think that there's, under any circumstance, I come to the same conclusion.
Okay, Council President, and then Mr. Swirsky.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the administration for just taking the time to put these graphs out, because I know this was something that I requested. And I just want to echo again what Mr. Hardy just said, because I am just feeling just some uneasiness with the fact that, you know, it was not too long ago that we had some individuals down here who were struggling to pay for their water bill, not just in the summer, but also 12 months out of the year. And they asked this very body for relief in that. And those were individuals who were currently on the HEAP program. And this body and the administration agreed that we could not do anything to help those individuals. And so I am finding it very difficult to be able to support this piece, knowing that if we can't help the very poorest in our city with relief, surely how can we help give relief to those who are the most wealthy? And so for that very reason, I am not going to be able to support this piece. I also had some questions because I know there were some amendments that were put in. I know that there's an application fee. I know that there's also an application, a $10 fee, and I didn't know if Mr. Hogue could kind of explain or talk about, you know, who's going to run that program. I know that we are already stretched with employees and, you know, doing the tasks that they're currently doing. Who's going to administer the program? You know, is that going to be additional cost to the city in terms of those individuals manning this program? And I don't know if you have those answers or someone from the administration does, but thank you.
Mr. Swirsky?
Just, do we have any numbers on the Rain Barrel program? How many people?
We can get that.
Yeah, that, I would like to add that to your list. It sounds like a long list.
Mr. Freeman and Mr. Hope?
Just, I guess, you know, I hear the equity conversation and whatnot. End of the day, we were sitting around our house and talking about this and saying, okay, this is the price that we're charging for water. We're kind of meeting our obligations. We lose revenue if we do that. And my big question is, okay, where do you make up the revenue? What I don't want to see is for us to eventually have to go back to the customer base and say, well, we did this program, so now we kind of got to raise everybody's rates. And I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers yet. I don't know if that would happen, but that's a concern I have.
I think that we have done, and Mayor Horgan has made it his mission to keep water rates and sewer rates from rising. We've done everything humanly possible by making sure that the total cost of these projects is going in the coming down direction as opposed to the skyrocketing up. And we've been able to achieve that in large part through partnership with this council. But you bring up a very good point, Councilman Freeman, which is at some point, whether we like it or not, we have to pay for this program. This isn't a choice that we get. It's mandated by the federal government and by a federal judge. And so at some point, however we tweak or work with the rates, somebody has to pay, all of us have to pay for the debt on this program to clean up our waterways. Somebody has to pay.
Right. Mr. Hope? You have anything to say?
I'll agree with that. Somebody has to pay, but it's also at a point where, you know, at what point don't you help your residents? At what point don't you give allowances to a program that is charging you for water and charging you a sewer rate for the water that is not going into the sewer, without having to go and get a second meter and go through the whole process of the installation and the cost of the installation plus the monthly fee for the billing to go through that. So, yeah, everybody has to pay. Everybody's paying now. Everybody's paying for the $200 meter that is being given out.
We all pay for the meters.
We all pay for meters, yeah. We all pay. You're talking about equity, and the people that can afford the meters and have them installed, and the people that can't, are people that are paying for
So
the
do you
meters.
just want to pay for the parks in Ellet? Is that what you would like for them to do?
You're talking
and
out
then-
both sides of your mouth on this.
I am not.
Don't interrupt me because I didn't interrupt you.
You did the whole time.
Okay, if
Stop.
we could get back to the point at hand here, can we go to Mr. Kilby, and then we're gonna, hopefully, we can take some time so you can answer these questions
Okay,
that
let
we
me-
all
couple
have.
Things, so a meter costs around $200. Do we agree on that?
I don't know what the meter cost.
Somebody threw that out. Sounds reasonable to me. Picking up a little bit on what Mr. Hoke's talking about, and you're talking about equity. I'm looking at these maps, and there's a whole lot of people in Hudson, Bath, and Copley that are getting meters. Now, do we charge them for meters, or are they getting them free too?
I would have to ask the service department that.
Well, my point is this, you talk about equity. I assume these meters are paid out of the water capital fund or the sewer capital fund, I don't know, but
They're ratepayers too.
they're what?
The Hudson and Copley residents, they pay Akron Plus rates.
Okay, but it comes out of a lot of poor people that can't afford to have a meter installed. You know, I heard half the residents in Akron now are rental property. Some landlords pay the bill, especially if the tenants can't. But my point is this, you talk about equity, there's a whole lot of poor people that are paying the water bill that are subsidizing these water meters that go to people in Hudson and Copley. So that's not equitable either. So you can look at this both ways. And I don't, you know, what we really need to know, Mr. Hardy, is, I don't know if someone can extrapolate how much this would cost. How much money would we lose from the sewer capital fund if we implemented Mr. Hoke's program? I mean, that's what we really need to know. Is there any way of getting those numbers to us?
Yes, we can get those numbers.
Good, okay.
Okay, if we could, you seem to have a lot of questions that need to still be answered. If you could get those to us. We are not here next Monday, but if we could get those before we're back at council in 2 weeks so we can make a formidable decision and have this for a vote.
Yes.
I might appreciate it. Can I, yes, Mr. Neal?
Thank you. I did want to ask, and Mr. Hardy, I know the administration wasn't in place when we set our water rate initially. When we set our water rate initially, we used median income because I believe that was what the standard was, what other communities were doing. We never went back, as we promised, and said that we would look at how to find a more, at that term, we weren't using the term equitable. We may have been just using the word fair, but a more equitable way of charging that bill, so it's not just based on median income, you know, to pay a water bill. I think it's the charge of both administration and council to find a more equitable way for just our standard rate charge. We can't just stay with that any longer because that's just the way everybody else did it. We have to be creative on how we look at ways to finance this. I know down in Atlanta, I don't want to do that here, but in Atlanta, I believe they added something to their sales tax.
We can't charge a sales tax.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm saying, but down in Atlanta, that's what they did. I don't know if we would look at, when we talk about equitable and usage, and this is going back to what it costs us to process water based on how it falls into the streets. I think when we look at new development, I believe Councilman Swirsky and I were having this conversation. If you've got a place that's coming in and they're putting in 50-something acres of just hard asphalt, and that's all got to be processed in our plant, we need to put some type of surcharge, processing fee on those types of facilities. Any kind of new construction that doesn't have a way of processing water. I don't know what the answer is, but we all know that what we're doing right now isn't sustainable for our population. So what I'm asking is something that we've never done, is collectively. And we know the value of the tabletop concept. We have a lot of people in our community that work in other communities that have expertise in this area. And, you know, we got to get creative on trying to find a way to finance this. So since we're using this word around this horseshoe, I think it behooves us to really try to find an equitable way of just the standard charge. I don't care if it's related to a meter or not. We owe that to the citizens of Akron.
Just real quick, if I may, Madam Chair. I appreciate those comments. I just want to close my comments by saying that while it may not be the best way to do sewer rates, and yes, they did predate us, they were the best way to pay the bill that we were going to owe. And I think one of the most politically expedient and easy things to do in Akron today is to be for discounts in sewer rates. But one of the most prudent and practical leadership qualities that we need right now is to have honest conversations about how to improve the situation versus last minute, I'm on the way out and I want to do something interesting type of conversations.
So
That was a
if we
real
could,
cheap
if we
shot.
could,
Yeah.
can I get a motion for time, please?
Motion for time?
Can I get a
We're not
second?
finished yet. I'm
All
not
in
finished.
favor? Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we have 2 nays, 3 ayes for time. Mr. Hardy, if you could get these things to us, can we email you or Mr. Moore questions if we have any?
Please email them to the service director.
We will do that. And with that, we are adjourned.
Good.